hope you're all well. It's a Friday afternoon for most of you, and so I'm going to try and make this webinar quite easygoing, not too hardcore, and something to help you wind down for the weekend, as I imagine your attention span is starting to go and you're thinking of partying or whatever you may do on a weekend. So anybody who's a current Ducksoup user, it's great to have you here, and hopefully this session make you a better user. And anybody who hasn't used Ducksoup before, this is a really good opportunity to get to know how we work and how we try to approach everything from how you can do lead generation to also how we can support you and just make you a better user generally on LinkedIn. So today, the webinar, there's a few things I want to cover, but firstly, if you don't know who I am, my name's Patrick Collins, and I'm the head of customer support at Ducksoup. So my role within the business is trying to always work with you as a team on listening to your feedback, listen to your product ideas, fixing any bugs, and most importantly, making sure you get the best user experience. So from time to time, you'll see me on tickets, you'll see me on webinars, you'll see me on blogs, that sort of thing. I'm also here today with Ruta, who's responsible for responding to all live chat and customer tickets through European time zone. So any European customers out there, if you have a ticket, it'll probably be Ruta that you speak to. So she's just here with me now, and there's a chat function on this webinar. So feel free throughout the webinar to answer questions. Ruta will be able to reply to you, or we'll take little breaks and answer them publicly over the webinar as well. If you have any questions specific to your account, the odd bug, the individual thing, if you want to save that to create a ticket, that's usually easier. The questions here are more general about the topic we're going to be speaking about. So I think to give you a quick introduction, what is Ducksoup and what is the point of being in this whole world of lead generation? So basically, Ducksoup is a tool to help you with lead generation on LinkedIn. And by lead generation, what I mean is an approach that can help you turn a stranger into somebody who wants to speak to you. Now, this context is completely different for all different people. Some people might class a lead as somebody who wants a demo of your product. Other people might class a lead as somebody you might add to a newsletter. Other people might class a lead as somebody you just want to try and drive to your website. So there's all different definitions of a lead, but you all have the combined goal, and that is, can you target on people on LinkedIn to learn more about what you're doing, the services you're offering, and trying to drive them to a place where you can sell to them, speak to them, meet them, that sort of thing. And very simply, one of the core features of LinkedIn is you can automate all of the connection messages to these people. So you can find your target market, you can send a personalized message to these people, and it starts to create this automated process of speaking to customers and building conversations. Today, I'm going to show you all the features that are part of the Pro version. Now, to give you a little bit of context of what versions Ducksoup has, if you have a look here at pricing, scroll down a bit, here we go. You have Starter, Professional, and Turbo. Starter version is okay just to play around, but for the price of $11, I would just say, don't have a coffee for a day or two and just test it out. So let's skip Starter for the moment, but Professional version is what I'm going to be showing you today. The Turbo version is all sorts of things you can do, and some of the things are Turbo are things like not just a connection message, but an automated follow-up that we just released this week. Also, you can sync to a sales CRM, which can be handy, and you can sync all of the messages. Turbo also has an integration with Zapier, which opens up a lot of functionality that way. But that's for another day, another webinar, and possibly for another week. So we'll cover that separately. But today, I want to talk through what Ducksoup Professional version does and how that can help you with your process of lead generation. I think before we get into Ducksoup as a tool, I think what's really helpful for anybody on LinkedIn is trying to get you to realize what works well on LinkedIn in terms of a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn safety, just LinkedIn as a whole. So I think the first example is if you want to have a look on my personal account. One thing about this is that whenever you're running LinkedIn, you want to have as many connections as possible. And a good way to build your connections or second-degree connections is connect with somebody that has a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and apologies for saying connections 100 times there. But I think I have nearly 9,000 connections. So if anybody after this wants to send me a message and connect with me, that's great. There's one rule: I never accept a connection message if you haven't added a personalized message, and we're going to show you that today. If it's just a connection, I'll not accept. But if it's a personalized message, I'll accept, and I'm looking forward to working with you. So I think let's go through a LinkedIn profile and some of the features that are so important. So I think step one is your background image. If you imagine your LinkedIn profile is like the top half of your website, in this top square here is what people are making a judgment of straight away. Now, you don't have to have a background image, but if you do, I think it needs to look right. The point behind this, that if it's not good, it's terrible. So there's no tried hard, but it doesn't look very good. That will just damage your profile. So I think there's a few things to do for this. One is I always like to have my personal logo there, just to remind a person looking at my profile who I am and keeping things branded. The second thing is I like to have a tagline. So if you can think of your business, how do you describe what you do in 2 lines? So if you think of Nike, they just say, just do it. Carlsberg say, probably the best lager in the world, things like that. What's your personal tagline, and what are you trying to say to somebody in 1 sentence, the effect of your business? And that's what's really good to show here. Final thing is just the colors. Try not to have anything too complicated. Try to have something that's either similar to your brand or something that you find that's quite a cool picture that will catch people's attention. And everybody knows modern day, people's attention span is terrible. And I think a recent report said that people have an attention span of something like 30 seconds. We're pretty much getting worse than goldfish. So I think when you're looking at somebody's profile, make this nice and shiny, make this a really cool background, and it'll keep their attention to actually read down to the things that you want them to know. So that's the first thing about the background. The next thing about is the image. I think there's 2 ways you can go for this. One way is to be very professional looking. And so I mean a suit, a shirt, a tie, looking at the camera, that sort of thing. The other idea is to go absolutely sensational. And so that is something like a cartoon version of you. It's a picture of you with your hair on fire. It's a cartoon picture of you. It's something that's so addictive that people are going to open it all the time. Most of the time, I would say go safe. Go safe with a professional picture. Because if you don't get the really crazy picture right, it just looks a bit rubbish. So I think always have a professional looking picture, and that will get the best results. The reason why I'm saying this is so important, and apologies if anybody's connected with me just now because you're about to be webinar famous, but all I want to show you here is brilliant. These people all messaging here. What I really like is the profile pictures are professional. And so Jason, Robert, Nathaniel, thanks for joining the webinar, and great for listening to me with the messaging here. What's cool is the profile picture is professional and I trust them. So this is why it's so important. On here, you need to have a picture that the first impression is nothing too hardcore, nothing like I'm not sure about that person, I don't like the look of them. You basically don't want anybody to have an opinion. If we go back to here, I don't know too much about Robert, but I don't have anything to dislike. I think it's smart, 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 so I'm willing to speak to them. And that's what's very important here, a profile picture that is opening up some trust. And that's where you want to get here. The next thing is this messaging here, and this is what we call the LinkedIn tagline. So what you need with this is to make sure that you say the effect of what you do, not just who you are. So if you think of the analogy of when you go to a bar or networking meeting, and everybody's just talking about who they are, and the first question is, so what do you do? What's your job? And it's such a boring thing. You don't want to just say, I'm the founder, I'm the CEO, because nobody's really bothered. All they're bothered about is, you're the founder, but what do you actually do? What's the impact of your expertise? What's the impact of your job? What's the impact of your service? So for example, my job role, I would say, is I'm the CEO. However, I don't say that on here because nobody cares. What's important is to say I help startups and SMBs to generate more leads via LinkedIn and email. So whenever I connect with somebody, and if you imagine the analogy here, it's to help them. So Nathaniel, you've got an awesome response here. I accelerate the growth of my clients' talent functions. So Nathaniel, I know exactly what you do. And if I connect with you, I know how we can share expertise. With this one here with Robert, you say risk management, but I want to know the impact of this. So all of these qualifications, can you help me save money? Can you help me help with clients? So it's trying to show an impact. And the same thing here, Jason, when you say the co-founder of Cavernous HR podcast, that's great, but what is that? So I would say CEO and host of Cavernous HR podcast, helping small businesses to understand payroll, helping small businesses to recruit the right people. So it's trying to say the impact and the effect of what you do. And the reason why this is so important is because if you add this, I have an understanding here of the profile picture, what you do, so I'm much more likely to click accept. And when I click accept, that means we're now starting to talk, and that's the definition of going from a stranger to now a potential lead. So if we go back to my profile here, good profile picture, good background image, and a text here to say is not just what you do, but what is the impact of what you do. Does anybody have any quick questions on that first of all? Is there anything yet, Rita?
Yes, from Santosh.
Yeah.
How can we use Duckstep for email marketing?
Okay, cool. So Santosh, we'll touch on that in about 10-15 minutes time, but don't worry, I haven't forgot about you.
Another question from Patrick. Does the free version do anything?
Yeah, the free version does do quite a lot, really. And I think as a business, why would we push the free version too much? We work hard, we want to make some money from it. But yeah, the free version does have a lot of functionality. It just doesn't really let you connect with people. So it's good for visiting profiles, scanning a bit of data, but all the things that you want to automate, you really need to pay for. And that's why I've sort of scanned over that. But what you might want to do is just download it, try the free version, play around for a bit, and then watch this webinar to see how you do the upgraded features. But yeah, the free version does have a lot of cool features. Okay, so back to the LinkedIn profile. So one of the next things is the summary. Now, I'm really not good at this summary because I change my role, I change my opinion on myself almost monthly. So updating the summary, I don't do too much. A lot of times people ask the question of, should I do it in the first person or the third person? And I'm not sure, because I really cringe when I read about myself or write about myself in the third person. However, when other people are reading this, maybe they find it more comfortable. So I would usually say write it in the third person because it looks a little bit more professional by saying Patrick instead of I. In terms of this in the summary, though, not that many people read it, to be honest. What they tend to do is look at the profile, look at the image, and flick to your companies where you've worked. So with the summary, try and get it quite concise. But maybe just add something that's a link there that can link to your website. So something that when they read, they can have a look and then click to your site. But in all honesty, I don't think this is too important. It's good to have 2 or 3 lines, but it's not the make or break. What I do think is massively important, so remember this is me looking at my profile, so other people won't look at this. But what is very important is this section here, experience. So if you think of the context, you're going to be connecting with people on LinkedIn and they are trying to figure out, does this person know anything that I can trust? Do I want to work with this person? So if I'm trying to connect with you saying I help companies generate more leads, you should be looking at my profile thinking, well, is this person full of it or has he got a lot of experience? And so this is the point of experience here, to say the jobs you've had, what you do, and all the different projects that you've been working on. So basically all of the jobs you've had that have led you to this position of saying, what I'm trying to pitch you now, trust me because I'm an expert at this. And that's really important here. So within each job, I would do the following. I would say a quick tagline of what the business does, a little bit about the impact of it, and then how they can contact you. So a website, an email address. If it's not your business, for somebody else or mentoring or something like that, then add a little bit about what the business does and maybe some images, photos. So for example, whenever I do training, I always like to click and maybe show a profile picture of me there. Again, the same thing is always about this subject of trust. Can I speak to a stranger, show them my profile, introduce myself, and they trust me enough to say, yes, accept connection message. And the reason this is so important is on LinkedIn, people have to accept or ignore. If you think about this as an email message, people don't ignore or accept, they just open the email. So LinkedIn lead generation, in my opinion, is way more efficient than cold emailing because people have to approve, yes, they want to speak to you. And by people clicking approve, the strength of the relationship is so much higher. So if we go back to here, trying to do all these things in terms of a profile picture, a background image, a tagline, company experience, all these things just make it easier for people to say, okay, I'm going to click accept. Final few bits about your LinkedIn profile are skills endorsements. I'm not a big fan of. I've never even met Justin Wu, and I don't know who he is, yet he keeps endorsing me. It's totally useless. So I think skills and endorsements are like a Facebook like. It has no real world value. It gives you a little bit of an ego boost, but who cares? So I would say push this if you want to, but it doesn't have a massive impact. What I think does have a massive impact is this section here on recommendations. I want strangers to come to my profile, read these introductions and think, okay, it seems like he's good at training or he's good at lead generation. I'll have a chat with him. So again, this word that I'll say 100 times is trust. try and build up your personal profile that you can get recommendations from here from people that say, this person knows what he's doing. So really important there that you try and push for them. Apart from that, things like accomplishments, interests, nobody really cares about too much. So I think the main thing is trying to get these recommendations up and running. Okay, so final few bits here, just to summarize on this, then we're going to move on to actual DuckSoup. A profile image, tagline, summary, experience, and recommendations. Get those things ready and you'll probably double the amount of connections you get on LinkedIn, or double the amount of people who accept. So really make sure to try and work on those. We've got a load of blogs on DuckSoup websites. I think we'll look at it sort of another time, but if you go to the blog, you'll be able to search for all this different sort of information that I've written in a lot more detail. Okay, any quick questions on that or anything else so far that we want to cover, Rita?
Yeah, from Patricia. Where do you put the buzzwords? I was using the tagline for that.
Okay, so Patricia, by buzzwords, I don't know if you mean buzzwords as in just something more sensational that's going to catch people's attention, or buzzwords as if you mean keywords. Now, this is very different. So the reason I say this is that if you go to search and search for people, and we are going to cover this in a bit more detail today, but if you do search, you can actually search by keywords, which you can see here. So when you go to title will also include keywords. So what you can do is when you talk about a buzzword, what you might mean is the keyword that you want to be searched for. So for example, in my profile, I have startups, SMBs, I have LinkedIn, I have email. So if someone's doing a profile search and types in B2B startups, there's a good chance that I'm going to show up and someone might want to connect with me because they're looking for support as a B2B startup. So I think when you say where to put the keywords, I would say as many of your relevant keywords in here. So depending on how technical you are, but for your website, this will be called SEO. So trying to optimize your website. And what you're trying to do is get the keywords in the most relevant places. Same thing on LinkedIn, keywords will be here. Doesn't matter if they're on an image because LinkedIn won't filter this because it's just an image. But here on the text, it's very important. The other thing for keywords is to have it on previous jobs. So you might say in here some keywords, but you might also have a keyword next to your role here, next to your role here, next to your role here. So try and get it to every time there's a job role, that's where you want your keywords. Okay, and what else?
What is a good acceptance rate for invitations using DuckSoup?
So for invitations, my goal whenever I'm working with a client is over 50%. And the reason that we get consistency with this is if you think about, if you connect with 1,000 people in a month, you've got to write off probably about 300 of them, or maybe 250, that are just not that active on LinkedIn. So they have a profile picture, they have messaging, they show up in your search, but they're just not that active. That means that you send a connection request, but it might take a couple of months before they even check. So that's why automatically that's going to reduce your connection rate. The other thing is there's naturally other people that are just not interested in connecting with you. So that then gives you another maybe 10%. So then you should be left with about 50%. However, I see a lot of people that are 10%, 20%, and there's a lot of reasons for this. Reason one is they don't have a good profile picture or good tagline there. So that when, I'll go back to here, when someone tries to connect with you, here we go, good image, good tagline, makes sense. So a lot of times what will happen is if you don't have an image or you don't have a tagline, people don't really know why you're trying to connect with them. The other thing that's hugely important here is the personal message. Jimmy, who maybe, apologies to point out here if you're watching, but Jimmy hasn't sent me a personal message. So I presume it's because of the webinar, but I have no idea. So Jimmy wants to connect with me, but I don't know why. He might want to be a friend, he might be an investor, or might be just trying to sell to me. So if I don't know the personal message, there's more likely I'll click ignore because I don't know the context of why you're messaging me. So to get that connection message high, you need all of this description correct in the image, but you have to have a personalized message. And so if you're doing LinkedIn lead generation, every single connection needs to be personalized. And that's what DuckSoup can do automated for you, or you can do it manually as well. But I'm going to show you today how to set that up automated. Okay, final few questions and then we'll move on.
From Lewis, do you think we need LinkedIn paid accounts Or can we do this on the free version?
Okay, so thanks for that, Lewis. You can do all of DuckSoup on the free version, so you don't have to have a paid version for the functionality. The only thing that you might want a paid version are two things. So one is the search criteria, because free LinkedIn is quite basic compared to Sales Navigator LinkedIn is way better. The other one is also the volume of how much you can do on LinkedIn. So for LinkedIn free, I think you can view about 1,500 profiles per month. Whereas LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is this icon here that I'll show you in a second, you can view around 1,500 profiles per day. So if you think about using DuckSoup and automating a lot of the work you want to do, you'll naturally want to achieve more than you could do manually. So you probably want to upgrade to a better account. However, if you're new to DuckSoup, my approach would be using DuckSoup Pro version, which is about $15 a month, having a basic LinkedIn account, taking things really slow and steady, and I'm going to show you the settings in a second, and gradually building a momentum on your account. And I think this leads us up to the next section, which is LinkedIn safety. So if you imagine your LinkedIn profile is all looking good, before you start using DuckSoup, I would say do a few things to make sure your account is safe and healthy. So the first thing I would do is go to My Network, so this one here. And under My Network, you can click on Manage All. And next to Manage All, you can see all the received connections and all the sent connections. Now, what's really important under sent connections is you can see here, these are all the people I've tried to connect with 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 1 month ago, that sort of thing. What's important here is when you go to sent, I've got 1,700 sent connections. When you get to 3,000, LinkedIn will stop you sending any more and it'll look like your account's been flagged or banned. However, this isn't the case. All it means is that you've sent too many that you can't send anymore. So to tidy this up, all you need to do is click to select them all and then click withdraw. Now, as an act of sort of keeping things tidy, what I would usually do is I'd be in a process of using DuckSoup, connecting with people, and probably every Friday I look at my account. Anything that's 1 month old, so 1 month ago, I'll probably click and withdraw. The reason behind this is because if they haven't accepted after a month, they're probably not going to accept at all. So I might as well wipe them and maybe try again in the future. But this is one thing about LinkedIn safety. The other thing about LinkedIn safety is just the messaging. So if you have a look at messaging, before you get started, something like that, what you want to do, I'll just mark that as in red. What you want to do is make sure you don't have hundreds of unread messages. So go through your messages, and if there's any here, just try and tidy things up. The reason being that DuckSoup is going to make your LinkedIn account just explode with activity. So if you turn on DuckSoup and you're suddenly getting 20, 30, 40 people a day wanting to speak to you, it's going to get very messy if you don't have a position from the very start of the process to keep things organized. So with Gmail or within your email, you probably have a zero inbox goal that at the end of the day, you're trying to make sure everybody's replied to. You need this mindset the same in terms of LinkedIn. People are messaging you, you need to get back to them very quickly. And so if you do have unread messages, you want to reply to them. So I think that's two things you want to do in the case of LinkedIn safety. The final thing is, if your account has ever been flagged, if you've been banned, if you've used other LinkedIn tools and you've been logged out of LinkedIn, my biggest advice is go really, really slow. Your LinkedIn account is going to last you, depending on your age and your business, but anything for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I heavily rely on my LinkedIn account to grow my business. So I'm more concerned about slow and steady. And if you think of this term of saying good is good enough, you don't need incredible, you don't need thousands of leads, you don't need hundreds of connections a day. Just consistent activity every single day will get you a great amount of business. If you go too high, you're going to flag LinkedIn because they're going to think that you're too aggressive or you're pushing things too fast. So you need to take things slow within DuckSoup and automating things, and I guarantee you'll get some great results. So I think we've covered LinkedIn safety, so let's dive into what DuckSoup actually is. So whenever you go to DuckSoup, you can click on Get Started, download and try for free here, and this will take you to the Chrome store. And as the Chrome store, I've already downloaded it, but you can click Add to Chrome, and then as soon as you click Add to Chrome, you'll be asked to sync with your Gmail account. So we've got about 53,000 customers at the moment, and so it's real testament to how popular this tool is. But what's really important within this tool is that you continue to give us feedback, test it out, and we continue to learn and grow as we know what you need. But what's critical here is once you click sign up, you'll see this little duck icon here. We've had so many conversations with Will, the founder, in terms of what should the color be, how relevant it is, how interesting it is. Probably doesn't matter too much, but we all like to have a little bit of an input into what the duck is actually for. I think one point on that is I'm the head of customer service, and to try and explain why it's called Duck Soup is pretty tricky. But I think if you ever want to guess on the chat why it's called Duck Soup, I think we'll let you know at the end of the webinar. But for me, joining the business a couple of years ago, my first question was why in the name have you called a LinkedIn lead generation tool Duck Soup? But one cool thing about this is it's very rememberable. You're not going to forget Duck Soup. So first things we need to do is when you install Duck Soup, you'll see this here, and once you've connected your Gmail account or whatever account you need to do, you can then click on options, and this will show you all the different stages. So what I'm going to do today is go through each of these stages, and if you either do this at the same time as me or you watch this at a later date, if you copy these exact settings, a few things will happen. One is you'll get more than enough activity to grow your LinkedIn account. You'll get a load of connections requests if you follow the steps on tidying up your profile. And most importantly, your LinkedIn account won't be flagged or banned. If you go any higher than what I'm about to show you today, or any more aggressive, there's a good chance that you risk the safety of your account. So a few things to go into. I think just quickly, Ruta, is there any questions that I can quickly answer?
Yeah, from Peter. I do business development for 2 different companies. Any suggestions as to how to use LinkedIn in a non-confusing way?
Yeah, so who's that from? Peter?
Yeah.
Hi, Peter. So a lot of people do this, and for myself, I do the same. So we've got 20, 30 clients that we all run LinkedIn for. So the way to do this is you need a LinkedIn account for each client. So don't try and use the same account for each one. That gets very messy. So step 1 is an individual account for each client. Step 2 is under Google Chrome. If you click on this, you can click Manage People. And what you can do here is you can add people up to something like 20 or 30 people. So what I would recommend is you create a new Chrome profile for each business you're running, working with. What that means is that you'll have their own Duck Soup account, their own Google Chrome history, their own logins, and then you can run these simultaneously. This means that you can have multiple clients running Duck Soup at the same time, and it doesn't get confusing because each has their own persona. And all you could do is just write the name of the company there. So you know that whenever you click into it, you have a different profile. That's the best way that we recommend people to use multiple either for businesses, or might even be if one marketing person is running LinkedIn accounts for multiple people in the sales team, for example. That's a good way to have it if you just use multiple Chrome profiles. Okay, next question.
From Christina. How many a day is considered slow enough for LinkedIn?
Okay, Christina, we're going to cover that in about 1 minute. So yeah, we'll get to that in just 1 second. That's under the skipping settings. Okay, so let's go through the settings of what I think on Duck Soup. Step 1 is always tick this one here. So this is send a connection request to 2nd and 3rd degree connections and include a personalized message. So what this means is if you look at LinkedIn and look at my network, it's going to send these messages here, the connection. So that's the difference between no personalized message and a personalized message. So Duck Soup can automate this personalized message for you. So always, always add this. It'll help you so much. So I would tick this under the message. I think what's really important here is use a merge tag to get this personalized. So by a merge tag, I mean these ones underneath. So a merge tag of first name, last name, company name. You can use a few of them, but I think just first name is you need. So if I said hi FN, this would show up as hi Vanetta, hi Miles, that sort of thing. The next thing is this is a connection request. So this isn't a marriage proposal. This isn't a sales pitch. This isn't a cold call. This is a polite connection request, basically to say, can we be friends? What's really important about this is a lot of people are way too hardcore. And by this, I mean they say, hi, Vanetta, I hope you're well. I run a lead generation agency. Can we have a call and I can show you what I do? Or, hi, Miles, I help people with LinkedIn. Are you free for a call and I can give you my services? Or, hi, Hannes, I hope you're well. I'm head of customer service at DuckSoup. Here's a link to sign up. That, in my book, is way, way too pushy. And I try and use the analogy of this connection message is like the first conversation at a first date or speaking to a stranger at a bar. You're not trying to do anything apart from say, hey, can I introduce myself? This is who I am. Can we be friends? The reason why this is so important that you don't want to pitch here is because you want to be connected to that person to then make your pitch further down the line. If it's too pushy here, somebody will just click ignore and you can't speak to them anymore after that. The other thing as well is if too many people click ignore, your LinkedIn account can become flagged in the future. So that's why it's really important to try and say, I'm not trying to sell, I just want to be polite. And so my formula for this is hi, first name. I'm British, so I'm always over polite. So I would say, I hope you're well, hope you're having a great day. I then give a bit of context to who I am. So I would say, head of customer service at DuckSoup, and that's a link. But this is what's most important. I think I want to give a bit of context of why I want to, why they would benefit from connecting with me. So I say, and I write a lot of posts around lead generation and customer service. If I said I run a lead generation agency and would love to speak to you about it, it's too pushy. So I write a lot of posts about lead generation and customer service. And then the next section here is I want to boost their ego. So I say, it would be great to connect and keep up to date with your posts. So by this, I'm saying, I want to follow you. I want to learn more from you. It would be a great honor if I could connect with you. Using this sort of framework, we'll get that 50 to 60% connection accepted. So you're all individual in your businesses, but take some sort of advice from this and it'll work really well. The next thing here is let's go through some of the settings. So I don't want to send a personalized first degree message. We're not going to cover that today. Don't want to send in mail, don't want to follow, don't want to disconnect, don't want to save profiles. I think and save PDF. So you don't need to tick any of these for the moment. When you're using Turbo, again, more technical, you can choose these. But for the moment, you can just ignore them. This one here, I quite like. So what this will do is whenever I go on a LinkedIn profile and connect, it's going to endorse them for one of the skills. What I usually do is endorse their bottom skill. A lot of people will endorse people for what they're good at. If you endorse someone for what is they're not too good at, it maybe gets them, you get on their radar a little bit more. So that's quite cool. The other thing is you can tag profiles. So what I sometimes do is I'll highlight this and I'll tag them as startup. This means that in the future, once I've visited loads of startups, I can easily filter by anybody that I've tagged as startups to try and understand who's connected, who I'm speaking to, that sort of thing. It's not essential that you do this, but it isn't tidy for a bit of good bookkeeping. Final one here, you don't need to do this. So this is only for manually browsing. Don't need that at all. So these are the features here. And if you look at it, send a connection message, endorse one of their skills, tag them to keep it organized, and that's all looking good. So, Ruta, does anybody have questions about this page, first of all?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So I'll go on to skipping next. Okay, so skipping is all about trying to avoid the people that are going to waste your time or not going to be relevant. So skip if outside your network. Definitely want that one ticked. This means that if they're not relevant, if they're way, there's no second degree connections, there's nothing in common, I would say avoid because they're much less likely to accept. The next one I'd say skip if the profile photo is blank. What I want to do with this is just make sure that if they don't have a profile photo, the likelihood is they don't use LinkedIn. And if they don't, they're going to waste my time by me trying to connect, message them, speak to them. So I just say skip. Final one here is you can say skip profiles tagged as. So if you imagine you tagged a lot of people as startup and then you want to start connecting with people that are corporate, what you might do is say skip profiles tagged as startups so that you make sure you only focus on a new audience. But for the moment, let's keep it simple and skip those. Final thing is history skipper. You have a load of functions here of what you want to do, but I would choose skip profiles visited in the past 31 days. What this means is that if you've only viewed them this month or the past 30 days, you're not going to visit them again. It's just going to skip that profile. This helps to make sure that you're not constantly messaging, following people, that sort of thing. So again, into the skipping settings, nice and tidy, just these two settings and this functionality here. Okay, this one here called throttling. Throttling just means speed, how fast you want to go, that sort of thing. This is the part of DuckSoup that can make or break your account. You can break your account if you do this. If you go crazy fast, within a day or two, LinkedIn are going to flag into saying, wow, something too fast is happening here. The analogy is you're just learning to walk and suddenly you're driving a Formula One car. It's crazy difference in speed. So you need to have the analogy of learning to walk and then you suddenly start to jog. The reason for this is LinkedIn don't really want you to automate many things. LinkedIn want you to use manually or to pay for their in-mails. So by automating a tool, this needs to replicate human behavior, not massively scale up human behavior. So an example is for visiting profiles, I would say slowest. Under 50 per hour is fine. You're only going to connect with 100 in the day. So 50 per hour, no problem. Scanning profiles, again, I would go slow. And then I would say pause for 5 minutes after I would change this to every 20 visits. There we go. What this means is that when DuckSoup is visiting profiles, which I'm going to show you soon, as soon as it's visited 20 profiles, it's going to take 500 break. And at the top here, it'll just say, I think, paused or snoozing. And then it'll start again. This is amazing because this replicates human behavior and it makes sure that your LinkedIn account is not flagged in any way. Okay. I think that should answer some of the questions. The next thing is daily limits. So I would click this and I would change this to up to 100 visits per day. So that's no problem. Connection request, it depends how many LinkedIn connections you currently have. If anybody hasn't been using LinkedIn much and hasn't been using an automation tool, I would recommend to start with 25 per day. If you have been using LinkedIn a bit more and you want to speed up, I would say 50 per day. If you're feeling very confident and you think you've got a really good account, I would say go up to 100 per day. I have never pushed anything more than that with every account I've ever worked with. So to get great results, and I'm talking about, say, a B2B business getting something like 30 to 40 demos a month booked in, companies making thousands of pounds in sales, I've never had to push any more than this. So if anybody else says you should be connecting with 200, 300, 400 people per day, I would say you don't. I think you need to be doing less, but get the quality higher. The other thing is, what are you going to do if actually you connect with 400 people per day and 300 accept? Do you really have the time to be speaking to 300 people a day on LinkedIn? No chance. So try and keep this to something that's realistic. And I would say 50 per day connection request, and that's fine. For these settings here, add a random correction to the daily limit. Don't need that. I would say this one though, snooze the robot when one of the daily limits is reached. What this means is that if you manually are visiting some profiles and DuckSoup is on, in total, if you reach 100 visits or you do 50 connection requests, it's just going to stop working until the next day. This is a really good safeguard to make sure that you don't do too much of a mix of manual and automated in total. So it works really well. So does anybody have any either feedback or questions about the throttling side so far?
Yes, from Mark. If you have fast settings, then that get us banned, why have them?
So the reason I would say fast settings is, for example, Mark, I've used DuckSoup for about, 2.5 years now. And if we have a look at my LinkedIn account, I've got 9,000 connections. So I personally could put this up to something like maybe 800 visits, and I could change this to probably 350 per day, and my account would work no problem. I would get a ton of business and it would work great. However, there's just no need to do that yet. I think the same analogy is saying, if a Mercedes can go 300 miles per hour, why is there a speed limit? It's exactly the same thing. Just because you can go full speed doesn't mean it makes sense to go full speed all the time. So there might be individual answers to why you want to do that. And you might say, I just want to push this really hard for a month and then I'm not going to do anything else. So maybe you want to speed things up. But I think the most important thing is safety. So if you're trying your account with this bit by bit and you're making good progress, you might want to gradually speed it up. The only difficulty is LinkedIn don't publicly share anywhere how much activity you can do per day. So if you speak to LinkedIn support and say, how many people can I connect with each day? They will just say you can connect with a fair amount, a limit that's suitable for your account. There is no answers. So what's difficult is you can either keep pushing this until your account gets flagged, or you try and keep it safe to make sure your account never gets flagged. And I think that's a personal choice with you of how much you want to push this. But personally, I would keep it slow and steady and make sure the quality is very high and the time you spend on replying to people is much better. But it's individual. Okay, any more questions on that?
Yeah, from Miles. Do you have a view on whether using emails is effective?
Miles, I think it depends on your target audience. If your target audience are very small or very high profile, then I think InMails could be good. So if you're targeting people that are the business owner, the CEO, somebody possibly famous, then I think an InMail might be good because there's a chance that they won't accept your connection request. However, the problem with InMails, it's like a cold email. You'll suddenly message them without them even saying, do we want to have a chat or not? So I think if you do InMail somebody, make sure that you have a very personalized message of why you're speaking to them. But I think you can use DuckSoup with the functionality of InMail as well, that we could cover in the future, or feel free to ask the support team about this. But I think I would say stay away from InMail because you want people to accept, because by them saying click accept on the connection message, so by people clicking there, you're verbally saying to them, I'm happy to be in your network, I'm happy to speak to you. And so that's why it's important to try and get connections compared to just an InMail message. But both work very well, but I would say always err on the side of connections.
There's one more question from Mark. I've got nearly 13,000 connections, so can I push these limits more?
Yeah, Mark, go flat out. You can really push it. So I don't confuse anybody, but for Mark, who's got about 13,000 connections, Mark, I would personally say, if you have Sales Navigator, you can go up to about 500 visits per day. So I would say for your settings, Mark, get a Sales Navigator account, do 500 visits a day, and connection, I would say about 250, and you'd be okay. But again, it's each to their own. And my priority at the moment is having people that use LinkedIn for the next 20 years, not just the next 6 months, something like that. Okay, so I hope that all helps. The next thing is I want to show you Connect. So all of these features are part of Turbo, and we're not going to cover that today, but that's a webinar, I think, in about 2 weeks' time. But a quick context of that, what Turbo can do is every time you visit a profile, you can push that information to a sales CRM, to a Slack channel, to a Google Doc, to an email software, whatever you want. So it makes sure it integrates all your activities with DuckSoup with other things. The message bricks feature, what this will do is read all the messages and pull all the conversations to a system. So for example, if you add a lead to a sales CRM and you're having lots of conversations with that person, what DuckSoup will do is automatically push the messages from LinkedIn to the sales system. So you have all conversations in one place. And finally, the remote control, what this will do is that anytime you connect with somebody, these functionality will filter all the people who've accepted and send a follow-up message. So that's the blog that we've just released today about how to do these features. So anybody who wants to automate things a bit more might want to do Turbo features in the future. Okay, next things, is that okay, Ruta? Is there any questions? Yeah. Okay, next question. If you go to Planner, the whole goal behind this is that you can automate when DuckSoup is running without you doing anything. So as long as your laptop's open and the browser's open, DuckSoup at 6 o'clock will automatically start connecting with people and stop at 10:30, for example. So you can say random, and this will just start running at different times. The reason why I don't really use this is because I want to be in control of what's working, and if something's not right, or the message is not right, or the target audience is not right, I can quickly stop it. So I usually like to just switch LinkedIn on when I'm ready, instead of having this random. But if you wanted this to be really automated, just click random, click save, and then DuckSoup at specific times will just start and then just stop. And it's quite a cool feature. Okay, final thing is user. So these are different user IDs and that sort of thing. One thing to do is if you ever have a bug or anything like that, if you just click reload, what happens is your account will be refreshed and it'll be working again. So if anybody has a bug, one of the reasons is LinkedIn changes their layout almost weekly, nearly daily. And so there's always slight little bugs that DuckSoup are fixing to adapt. So if you ever find your account a little bit broken, just go to reload there, and then it'll update your account to the newest version. Final thing is on the browser. On the top right here, it depends what you want to see, but this is how you can change it. So what I changed this to is you can either have nothing, like that, you can have today's visit count or captured profile count. Captured profile count means all the profiles you visited, and you can download them whenever you want. I prefer today's visit count. So what this means is that this will show all the profiles you visited today and shows, am I on track with what I want to do with an activity today? So apart from that, I think that's all you need to do. So if you imagine Ducksoup settings are all good, I would click close. The final thing we need to do is find our target audience. So before we go into that, Rita, is there any questions?
Yeah, there's one question about Planner.
Okay.
How does the Planner know who to connect to? Do you need the search page open?
Yeah, so the way this will work is, who's that from? So Dom, what I'm going to do is show you how to find your search target first, and then I'll come back to why the Planner syncs in with this. So what's really critical for Ducksoup is you can automate messages, you can have a personalized message, but if you're targeting the wrong people, it's totally useless because you're not selling to your right audience. So this is how I want to show you how to do this on free and also Sales Nav. So first of all, on the free version, if you're on LinkedIn here, you go to search and click search for people. This will show you all functionality and click all filters. Okay, few things about this. Always connect with second degree. It won't let you connect with third degree on free LinkedIn, and first degree you're already connected with. Connections of, I usually leave empty because this is saying, do I want to connect with somebody I know? So I know that Cristobal, for example, he's a really good entrepreneur, runs a lot of programs. I reckon all of his connections I would be interested in connecting with as well. So that's the functionality of that, but I don't really use it too much. Locations is really important. So my target audience is United Kingdom, so that's what I'll tick. You can choose by city or country, and you can have multiple ones if you want to. But at the moment, I just choose that. Okay, next things, current companies and past companies. I don't use this at all really because I usually target startups. However, in recruitment, you might want to target people who've worked at Google in the past or something like that. So this is a really cool tool in terms of trying to find people where they're currently working or previous companies. Okay, industries. One tricky thing with industries is that you need to try and understand the terminology of how LinkedIn classifies people. So for example, I want to search for startups. So I would think a startup classes themselves as a startup, but they don't because there's no industry. So you would have to type in internet, and there you go. But it could also be computer software. It could also maybe be computer hardware or IT. So what you need to try and do is get used to what is your target market described with in the industry that LinkedIn uses. And if you can do that, it's a big help. Okay. Next thing is profile language. I'll usually choose English because if they start to reply to me in a language I don't know, it's just going to be impossible. So I'll try that. Schools is a little bit like previous companies and past companies. Unless you're trying to use it for recruitment and say they have to have gone to a certain uni, it's not too relevant. And the final features here. So first name, last name. If I know the name, I'm not going to run a search because I know the name. I'll just find them. So it's a bit useless here. Company and school, again, I'm not going to use that. The one I am going to use is title, which is really important. So if imagine at the moment, I type in founder and click apply. Let's see what shows up. Okay, so we can see there's 10,000 results, and that's amazing. However, I'm thinking actually maybe it's not just founder. I want to target more than founder. So what I do here is go to all filters, and I'm going to use what's called a Boolean search. So a Boolean search is this. When you do quotation mark, like this, capital O, and then the next one, which would be CEO, and click apply. And as you can see, the numbers are going up. What's important here is if you don't use that Boolean search technique and we just do it like this, let's see what we get. If it works, great, but I got a feeling it just brings the wrong things. There you go. So this is now bringing up people that are founder or CEO. So founder or CEO. So it's not quite what I want. I don't want founder and CEO. I want founders, and separately I want CEOs. So best thing here is to do that Boolean search, which does it like this. And you can do this for about 15 different ones. So founder, CEO, say, let's see, CTO. And there you go. This is my target market that I now want to start connecting with. So does that make sense so far for everybody?
From Kendall, there's a question: how do you do a not in Boolean search?
Yeah, so good question. So if you go to all filters, the same way you do all, we could just do not. So we could say founder, not CEO. And there you go. It's going to have founder, but it's not going to show up any CEOs. So make sure the search term is before what you want to say. So I'm looking for founders, don't want CEOs, but I could still have a CTO, something like that. So it takes a little bit of playing around, but that's how you can do what's called a negative Boolean search. So that represents that. Okay, the next question on that?
From Peter, can you select Europe?
Let's have a check, Peter. I'm not too sure, so let's have a look. No, you can't. So I would say, let's see. Yeah, I think you can filter by the city and the country. I think if you just filtered by Europe, it might be a bit too broad. So I think you just stick to that. However, let's check in Sales Navigator next, and we'll see. Okay.
Can you show again where to find the filter?
Of course. So apologies, it's Friday afternoon. Maybe I'm getting tired. So let's do that again. So if you go back to home, and if you click on search, and search for people, and then as you're searching, we need to click on all filters. And then all filters, these are the ones we'll choose. Second degree, United Kingdom, internet, computer software, and IT work for me. And the section is here, the bottom right, called title. So is that okay, Bart? If you just give us a thumbs up or something, that'll be cool. But I presume that's okay. So that title section there, and I'm going to use the Boolean search, which is founder or sales manager, and apply. Okay, cool. Thanks for the clap. Okay, so Victoria, that's quite a good question about different languages. So this is really important. So I work with companies all over the world, and a lot of time people will say sales manager, and sometimes they'll actually say the Swedish version of sales manager or the Danish, German version, whatever. I think it's worth testing and trying to just have a look before you do any of this. If you just type in sales manager. So Ruta, how would you say sales manager in Lithuanian? What would you say?
I have to think now. Pardavimų vadybininkas.
Right. Okay. So that's quite a tricky one. My example is basically you need to try and do a search in multiple languages to figure out if the people are describing themselves in Lithuanian, German, or English. However, my advice would be, whatever you filter by, make it the same language. So I filter by profile language English, so the title is English. If it was French, I would then change that to French, that sort of thing. So I think that should answer the question about that. Any more questions on that?
Yeah, from Timothy. Can you show us the Boolean search in Sales Navigator?
Yeah, so hopefully that's okay. So any more questions about this before I go into sales now?
How do you target startup companies?
Yeah, so for targeting startup companies, I would say this. Their industries are IT, computer software, and internet. Don't touch marketing because you'll just get people trying to sell to you back. And in the titles, I would choose founder. I would say there's about 5 good ones. So founder, co-founder, CTO. I would say maybe sales director can be handy. And marketing manager. The reason that I contact people like marketing manager is I know they're not going to be the decision maker, but once I'm connected to them, there's more of a chance that I can connect with the owner. Likewise, I might still speak to the marketing manager and they might introduce me to the owner. So by targeting them, it's from a bottom-up approach, whereas I also try and connect with founders and co-founders, which is a top-down approach. But that's how I target startups and to comply. So if I wanted to connect with all of these, the final bit before we go into Sales Navigator is I'll click DuckSoup, I'll click Visit Profiles, and there we go, we're live. And so what this means is that this is now going to connect with these people at the set times and the set pace as I want them to work. So that for me is going to be 50 per day, 100 per day, that sort of thing. So linking back with the question of how does the planner work, if you have this search criteria open, just save it on a tab there that's open. The planner at certain times during the day will suddenly open up and just start connecting with these people. So what's really important about DuckSoup is you have to have this this page open if you want this to work. So if I close this, it's not going to run in the background, it's just going to stop. So it's really important that you have this open as a tab. You can have it in the background and still be doing multiple things, it's no problem, but you need to make sure that this is running and doesn't get stopped. Okay, so I'll quickly stop that so you can know, and we're going to touch on the final bits, our Sales Navigator. So the difference between LinkedIn Free, which you can see this version, and Sales Navigator that I'll go on here once it just finishes, is going to be the amount of functionality you can have with searches is way bigger. So let's have a look at this. So Sales Navigator is a paid version. So you can have normal LinkedIn, business LinkedIn, I think premium LinkedIn, ignore all of them, but Sales Navigator is awesome. So what's good about Sales Navigator is if you go to the searches, what you can search for, it looks similar, but there are some different things. So for example, industries, if we use the context of startups, are the same thing, internet, computer software. Geography, let's see if we can do Europe. So no, I don't. Oh yeah, there you can choose Europe. So you can be a lot more broad in the searches, which is quite cool. The other thing is profile languages. Again, we can do that. Relationship. What's good about this is you can now connect with third degree if you want to. I always choose second, but if your target audience is quite small, you might choose third. So I would choose second. These are all fine. The one amazing thing though with Sales Navigator is if you look for title. So instead of me typing in CEO and having to do a Boolean search, what's great about this is that I can type in certain words and it's going to give me all the variables of that, which is great. So if I type in sales, for example, it's now telling me, well, these are the most popular ones: sales manager, sales specialist, sales attendant, sales associate. So when you're thinking of all the people that you want to connect with, LinkedIn or Sales Navigator makes it much easier to come up with all the variables of who you want to do. The other things are you can have other options: years of experience, company type, past companies, groups they're in, tags, a lot more different things. But the other big one, that the main difference is company headcount. So on here, you can filter by how big the company is. Now, this is really important. So if we go back to the example of startups, and I'm going to search for founder and co-founder. If I use basic LinkedIn and we go to the filters, there's no option to filter by company size. This means that I could be targeting anything from a self-employed person in an accelerator program to the CEO of Uber. They're all classed as a startup, and it's just ridiculous. If we go back to Sales Navigator, I would say I only want to target people 11 to 50. This probably means that they've had a bit of investment, they're growing, but they could probably need support. And what's great about this is you can see the number of results now goes down, and this is my target audience. If we get rid of this, I don't have 10,000 people that might be relevant. I more want the people that are relevant for me. So that's what I do for the search. And the same thing, this search will show up in a couple of seconds, just buffering here. What's really nice about Sales Navigator is out of these people, that's cool, but I can now see the people who've posted in the last 30 days. Now, these people who've posted are probably going to be the most active on LinkedIn. And if these are the most active, then probably more likely to accept my connection request, speak to me, and possibly want to have a call. So that's where we could be good. Likewise, you might want to target people who've got new jobs and say, congratulations on the new job. Can I help you with recruitment or sales or something? And final one, you can target people that you've got similar experiences with. So same likes, same previous jobs, part of the same groups, that sort of thing. Final thing with Sales Nav is you can click Save Search here. And the Save Search will let you just filter this for the future. So you can target loads of different people at the same time. For free LinkedIn, it doesn't save the search. So my advice would be to bookmark the search like this. This just means in the future, if you need to find it, you can just go for it. So both that one or Sales Nav, I can now just click visit profiles and then my account's running. So I hope everybody's found that beneficial so far in terms of how to use Ducksup, how to improve your LinkedIn profile, how to connect with people. I think the final bits of advice are there are tons of LinkedIn softwares, email softwares, all sorts of things out there. I think what we really try and find is unique about Ducksup is just the ability for you to play around with the software and try and push it to the limits you want that are right for you. In terms of customer support, we've got all sorts of different things. So we have live chat on the site, which is US and UK, so US and European time zone. We have webinars, we have remote support calls, and we have a ton of blogs. Final thing is there's a link, the Facebook group, sorry, that Ruth is just going to post a message to now. And that Facebook group is a closed group for only Ducksup users. But this is really great for access to new tips, to share ideas with each other and things like that. So anybody who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please send me a connection message. Otherwise, I thought you were half asleep during this webinar. If you want to speak to me, let's be friends. Let's see about how we can help each other. And if you want to try Ducksup, just have a look here and click download and try for free. I hope you found this really helpful. Have a great weekend, and let's keep in touch and speak to you soon. Cheers, team. Take care.